you come alone?
Cabdilla snapped. He was wearing mismatched leather with padded shoulder protection and brass buckles laced over his chest. His simple lever-action rifle was aimed at Augusta's head.
Do you see anyone else?
Augusta answered, arms in the air. It was an underground cavity with everything carved from stone. Iron supports towered several stories over them and fanned out ribs across the ceiling to support the chamber. Several fading overhead lights cast shadows through imposing statues of forgotten warriors looming from either side. The Gothic building built into the opposite wall was carved perfectly to appear as a standing structure with flying buttresses, pointed arches, colonnettes, and spires. Cabdilla was not the only bandit with weapons trained on the singular Augusta. He was flanked by half a dozen comrades that were not as fashionably dressed. Cabdilla stood closest, with the last bandit beside the double oak doors leading into the building.
Ugh, don't get smart.
Cabdilla snapped.
You, search him!
One of the unnamed outlaws kept a 9-barreled pepper box trained on Augusta as he approached. Augusta had dropped a bag in front of his feet that the outlaw ignored. The bandit noticed 2 empty holsters, then orbited around and unstrapped the ornate sword that had been on Augusta's back. The outlaw grumbled through broken teeth.
No weapons, but a sword? Oh, nice one, too.
Pocket blaster in my arm.
The outlaw apprehensively reached into Augusta's sleeve, unhooked the firearm, and removed it.
Oh, thank you,
the outlaw said.
Aw, no problem.
Augusta replied with a smirk.
Anything else?
Cabdilla snapped. The underling kept searching.
A watch. Oh, a spyglass.
Eventually, the underling patted every crevice until he was satisfied there was nothing else of concern.
Are we good?
Augusta muttered.
You speak for the family or the Ark?
Cabdilla asked.
Family. Ark won't step in. Is that the ransom?
Cabdilla pointed at the bag. Augusta gave it a soft kick.
20,000 as requested.
The underling grabbed the bag and opened it. He confirmed the stamped brass coins within. He smirked, nodded to his boss, then returned, admiring the weapons he stole.
Taking your weapons as well. The cost of bringing them here in the first place. Where is she?
Augusta asked. The underling ignored the conversation and carried the swag into the building. He handed the bag to another outlaw, pocketed the pistol, and gazed at the decorative sword, noting its numerous charms, lockets, and trinkets.
She's, safe.
Cabdilla answered.
We'll contact you when we're good and ready. That's unacceptable,
snapped Augusta.
You talk as if you have a choice in this matter.
The underling placed the sword on a table next to another guard sitting in front of the door, locked with a dozen latches. The guard looked down at the weapon, admiring its finish. The underling left to return outside.
I'll give you one more chance,
Augusta announced.
Take the money, return my gear, bring out the girl.
Cabdilla laughed.
In what world do you think you live?
He stepped forward.
In the Tracklands, death is law. Those who kill command those who can't. In the land of the weak, the man with the gun is king.
Augusta didn't flinch as Cabdilla stroked the trigger with his finger.
You should have thought of that before you gave up your gun and your sword. Oh.
Augusta chuckled.
Oh, yeah, that's your mistake. See, that's not my sword.
Inside the building, the guard was more concerned with the commotion outside than the items placed beside him, unaware of the sword as it rattled, found an owner, and impaled him. The horrifying scream from the building caught everyone's attention except for Augusta. The guard inside the building looked back only a moment before life left him, seeing the smartly dressed woman withdraw the blade. The distraction was the cue Augusta waited for, as a magician would reveal a card from his open palm with a flick of a wrist. Augusta rolled his fingers, and a pair of brass and pearl-plated single-action revolvers appeared in his hands. Augusta dove behind one of the crumbling statues after a barrage of gunfire from his weapons took out 2 of Cabdilla's bandits. Cabdilla barely avoided the attack as he returned fire from his rifle. Augusta rolled the cylinders over his bandoliers. The bullets fell on their own perfectly into their chambers.
Shoot them, you idiots!
He opened fire, taking out another outlaw as Sloan emerged from the house. Cabdilla and the remaining 2 outlaws turned quickly, She tossed her sword in the air and vanished the moment it left her fingers. Blind fire from the bandit struck nothing as the blade fell back into Sloane's hands as she appeared next to another bandit, slicing his arms off. Her blade deflected several incoming rounds from Cavalier. His weapons again empty, Augusta emerged from cover and ran towards a nearby outlaw as his attention was focused. The outlaw turned too late as Augusta tackled him, and they began struggling. Sloane ricocheted one of Cabula's rounds, which struck him in the shoulder, causing him to drop his weapon and fall. Sloane turned to Augusta, still trapped in a brawl.
Catch!
Sloane shouted as she tossed her sword to Augusta, immediately vanishing the instant it left her grasp. Augusta caught the blade and ran the outlaw through. Freed, Augusta stood back up and stalked Cabula, who struggled to reload his weapon. Augusta holstered one of his firearms, then dropped a handful of bullets in the other, the rounds falling perfectly into each chamber. Once loaded, he fired on Cabula, disarming him through a round in the other shoulder. Augusta tossed the sword towards the open air, only for Sloane to appear the instant upon catching it.
Did you find her?
She's okay. I took care of the guards.
Who the hell are you?
Cabula groaned. Augusta pulled back the hammer on his gun and trained it between Cabula's eyes.
As you mentioned,
Augusta said.
Man with a gun is king.
The makeshift jail cell unlocked and opened. Augusta entered first. Only a dim oil lamp provided minimal illumination.
Elena?
Augusta said hesitantly.
Daddy!
The young teenager shouted as she ran out of the shadows and embraced him. Her blonde hair was pulled back. She had eyes of jade and a sharp chin as she looked up to him. Sloane turned her back on the two and exited the building as Augusta embraced his daughter.